Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to my channel. I am Colleen Delaney. It is holiday season, and as many of you know, I am a children's librarian with 4 kids. So this is my book gift buying guide for 2021. It's going to range ages birth to 9, and let's just get into it because I have a ton of books to recommend. We're going to start with board books. Now, I'd recommend getting board books for any kids that are probably like 6 months to 2 years old because they're just a little bit sturdier and they can handle being manhandled by toddlers. The first book is The Wonderful Book of Wondrous Jobs, and it is by Lizzie Cooper and illustrated by Eloise Narrigan. This is a very cute book with really funny jobs that toddlers will love. My 4-year-olds are really into this book. Firefly electrician, how cute. They love it. There's bright pictures. There's a lot to look at on every page, so it keeps them interested. The next book is You Are Fantastic by Sabrina Moyle and illustrated by Eunice Moyle. This book is cool because I'm not usually one for books that have really bright illustrations, but I really like how they did it in this book because the only really fluorescent bright color is that peach, and then everything else is a little bit more of a calming tone, especially with the dark purple. You might have noticed I really like that dark purple because it is literally the color of the walls in my living room. Again, a very fun one, lots of beautiful pictures. My 4-year-olds are really into this book right now. Recommend it. Next is We Belong Together by Joyce. This is an older book, but we actually bought it this year, and we used it in homeschool last April, I think, when we were working on what are things that go together. So teaching kids the concept of things that you know in your brain go together. Peanut butter and jelly. Pencil and a paper. It's a very cute, very simple board book that my preschoolers did like, but I would recommend this one for more like the 1-year-old age group. The next book is The ABCs of Kindness, and it is by Patricia Hegarty and illustrated by Summer Macon. This book, actually, my 6-year-old is really into right now, even though it was meant for my twins. And she likes it, I think, because she's learning all her letters right now in kindergarten. And it goes through each letter and tells you a little sweet line or two about something that has to do with kindness. So F is for forgiveness, don't always look for blame. G is for gratitude, give thanks along the way. It's a very sweet story. The pictures are very calming, which this is the type of book I like to read before bed, so we're not getting our brains woken up, we're getting them relaxed. My last board book for you, because my kids are really growing out of the board book phase, is Little Women, a Playtime primer, and this one is by Jennifer Adams and the art's by Alison Oliver. This is part of that series, the classics turned into little kid board books. This is my favorite one. We also own the Anne of Green Gables and the Secret Garden and the Pride and Prejudice ones. But this one is my favorite, and I'll show you why. It goes through different activities that take place in the Little Women book, but the best part are these really detailed illustrations. So you can really let your kids get lost in looking at the pictures and finding really cool, sweet details in them. Also, it's a great jumping off point for discussion as to what do we do on a picnic? Well, this is what they did on a picnic. They brought food, they brought croquet. You can tell your kids what croquet is. Next, I have 2 picture books that are great for all ages, but if you're looking for a book to give someone who just had a new baby, I would recommend these because they're kind of classic feeling without being classics. And they are Animal Babies Like to Play, and that's by Jennifer Adams, who also wrote the Little Women primer, and the pictures are by Mary Lundquist. This goes through the alphabet, so actually my 6-year-old also, she's not 6 yet, she's still 5. Her birthday's in 3 weeks. When you're going through each letter, it's capitalized, and she's finding that very fun to pick out the letters in here, and it has very sweet illustrations where you follow a bunch of baby animals through the day. It's one of those perfect books for a new baby shelf. This is not a brand new book. This one came out, I want to say, in 2014 maybe. No, never mind. It came out in 2019. It's not that old. And my last book for a new baby is Hush, Little Bunny by David Ezra Stein. This is so beautiful, and this is really not just for new babies. If you have a kid who's obsessed with bunnies, which I do, which is why we own it, it is a fun story. And it's the song Hush Little Baby, but it's turned into Hush Little Bunny, and it's really sweet. You follow this bunny with the bunny parent through the day as the bunny parent takes care of the baby bunny. Really love it. All right, we're going to move into general picture books now. And in terms of picture books for a gift, I really recommend getting kids picture books even until they're in first grade, because as a librarian, I would read picture books up to second grade. Some of the more like interesting ones that are really great for kids with older brains that understand more stuff. So this is a pile that I've used with all of my kids, ages since the twins were 3 and my oldest is 8.5. The first is The House of Grass and Sky. This one is by Mary Lynn Ray and it's illustrated by E.B. Goodale. This follows a house through the years as it is first lived in by a family, and the illustrations are purposefully a little bit vague. You think it could be, you know, the 1800s, or it could be like 1930 when they're living there. And then while the house sits empty for several years because there's no family living in it, and you follow the house feeling lonely. And then finally at the end when a new family moves in. And it's a really sweet story. The pictures are very beautiful. We've all really enjoyed this book this year. Next is Home Is by Hannah Barnaby and Frann Preston-Gannon. This was actually a gift for one of my 4-year-olds on a whim from my mom, whose love language is gift giving. So I think she got it in like September, even though her birthday is in November and it wasn't Christmas. But the pictures in here are really beautiful. The story is wonderful as well. It's a rhyming story talking about where different animals and people live all over the world. We have really enjoyed reading this one. The pictures in this one are really bright, so it's great for more of like a playtime story time. Next is a brand new book my twins just got for their birthday and are obsessed with. It is called The Creature of Habit by Jennifer E. Smith, and it's illustrated by Leo Espinoza. This book is really funny, so if you want a funny picture book for a kid, this one's great. All my kids laughed when we're reading it. It's about this creature who lives on an island and really sticks to its routine, and then another creature moves in and kind of disrupts the routine. It's very fun, funny. The pictures are cute. I think it's a great book, especially if you want to give a book to a family with multi-aged kids. The older kids will still find it funny and the younger kids will find it endearing. The next book we're going to talk about is Bird Balloon Bear by Il Sung Na. I am a huge fan of Il Sung Na. Il Sung Na won the Caldecott Honor for the Book of Sleep when I was working as a school librarian. We did a ton of projects about that book. I love this author's work. So Bird Balloon Bear follows a bird who is looking for a friend in the forest, finds Bear, but before the bird can work up the courage to talk to Bear, Bear finds a new friend, and the friend is a balloon. And you follow them through the woods. It's a very sweet story. I also really like this book because it is short. Now, when you are trying to put your kids to bed and they want to read a book before bed, and you've maybe forgotten that it was bedtime and you're running about 20 minutes late, this is a great book to just grab because you can read it in like a minute, which is really clutch for parents. Next, we have Straw by Amy Cross Rosenthal, and the illustrations are by Scott Magoon. You may be familiar with Amy Cross Rosenthal. She's written a ton of children's books, and this book was actually published after her death. She died, I want to say, in 2017, but she had written a couple books before she died that are still coming out. She wrote a beautiful article about what it meant to like know you were dying, which is very sad. But back to her kids' book. She wrote the book Cookies, which is very popular. Little P, she has a huge backlist of books. Straw is very sweet. It's about a straw and how straw does everything really fast and learning to slow down and enjoy life. The pictures are cute. It's very fun. This, I would say, swings a little bit on the older side, so maybe like a 5 and up read, but all my kids do enjoy reading this book. Next is Bear Meets Bear by Jacob Grant. This is a very sweet story about a bear who orders a teapot, and when the panda comes to drop it off, Bear is struck by how wonderful Panda is and wants to talk to Panda, but is too shy and Panda disappears. So Bear continually orders teapot after teapot, trying to work up the courage to talk to Panda. And finally, something happens at the end, but I'm not going to tell you. My 5-year-old in particular loves this book and finds it very fun. The pictures are fun. It is a good story. Next, you can see that this book is absolutely beat. We love this book, and I might actually replace it. And it is A Little Bit Brave by Nicola Keener. I actually bought this paperback at the Scholastic Book Fair, thinking like, oh, whatever, the Scholastic Book Fair. I like to pick out my own books at like independent bookstores, so I'm not a huge fan of going to this classic book fair, but I always let my kids pick out a couple books. So we picked out a couple paperbacks, and this has become such a favorite that we've absolutely destroyed it, and it probably needs to be replaced with a hardcover. This follows a bunny who is afraid of everything, and that bunny's best friend who is afraid of nothing. And there's a particular picture in here that I love so much because I feel like this really displayed what the entire world felt during March and April of 2020. And it was that we were in our houses and we were taking care of our plants and looking at our collections, and we were baking, but in every picture the bunny looks really worried, and that's sort of how we all felt. I love the pictures in this book. It's beautifully illustrated. They are so much fun. Again, all 4 of my kids love this, so it really swings both younger and older in terms of a picture book. Next, if you were looking for a winter-themed book, which are always fun to get at Christmas, I would recommend The Snowy Nap by Jan Brett. This one came out a few years ago, but I really, really like it. I love Jan Brett. She's probably most famously known for The Mitten and the Hat, but she has a huge body of work I would really recommend checking out at your library if you haven't. This one follows Hedgie, who is a hedgehog getting ready to hibernate, and as he listens to all the farm animals talk about how beautiful winter is on the farm, he decides to try and stay awake for his hibernation, and he does manage to stay up long enough to get a few peeks at what winter is like on the farm from inside. It's really sweet. Jan Brett's illustrations are really cool because there's always stuff on the side, and she really works like crafts into the side. So we've got like illustrations of like a knitted background, woodworking. Her stuff is so beautiful. If you aren't familiar with her, definitely check her out. The Snowy Nap came out a couple years ago, I think in 2017, but we are still reading it constantly. It came out in 2018. Now, this book is really a book that I don't enjoy, but my girls love it. So I have to recommend it because it's a book that kids love, and that is Pinkalicious, Merry Pinkmas. My girls love this series. I'm not crazy about it. I think it's fine, but it is really cool in terms of like the artist uses mixed media for the illustrations, which is definitely something you don't always see in picture books. And this is just the Christmas rendition of Pinkalicious. So we've got a pink Christmas tree at some point in this book. This one also came with some crafting in the back, which the kids are enjoying. You can rip out, we just got this book last week. You can rip out Christmas cards. There's some stickers. So if you have a kid obsessed with Pinkalicious, check out Merry Pinkmas, the Christmas rendition. Now we are going to switch into books that are particularly for kids who really like nature, or you're looking to instill a love of nature in these children. And we're going to start with Kazuo Iwamira, who's probably my favorite picture book author and illustrator of all time. And the good news is it was really hard to get his books, and now it's becoming easier. So his series, the Micmac and Molly books, which this is one of the original ones I've owned. Hooray for Snow. I bought this used when my first kid was a baby. The other books in this series, I own them all, but they're all pretty destroyed because of how well loved they are. But now you can find this on Amazon because it got reissued in the United States. They were originally written in Japanese. This follows 3 little squirrel children through the woods as the forest is blanketed with the first snow of the year. They are extremely sweet. I have to give a shout out to the librarian I used to work with who introduced me to this author. And we used to do this series as a lesson with the kindergartners. This is one that just got released in English, so I bought it immediately, obviously. And it's Goodbye Winter, Hello Spring. This one is obviously not like as wintry as Hooray for Snow is, but I really enjoyed this one too. It is beautiful as well as you're watching the forest melt and turn into spring. There is Hooray for Snow, Hooray for Spring, Hooray for Summer, Hooray for Fall, Goodbye Winter, Hello Spring, and then there is another one called Bedtime in the Forest if you are looking to get a child a collection. This is also a really good series for a family that you feel like they have so many books already, but they love them, because not a lot of people in the English-speaking community are aware of this amazing children's book author because he is Japanese and his books were really hard to find for basically decades. Next, we've got Moon by Brita Tekken. This is gorgeous. It's a great bedtime book because it is dark, and it's a fun book because when you turn the pages, the shape of the moon changes. It also goes through different places in the world, all looking up at the same moon. So we're at the jungle in places, we're at Antarctica, we're on a mountainside, we're by the ocean. We're really just it's like taking snapshots around the world and animals looking up at the same moon. There's my favorite picture. Next, we have Winter is Coming by Toni Johnston, and the pictures are by Jim LaMarche. Now, this is not a new book, but in particular, my 5-year-old is obsessed with this book, and it has kind of turned her into this main character, which is why I recommend it. It is about a girl who goes into the woods every day throughout. It seems like it's like October, November, December, waiting for winter to come, and she does illustrations of all the animals she sees. It is very beautiful. I'm going to show you my favorite picture because it's probably one of the best illustrations I've ever seen in a picture book. So this is my favorite one, which is her sitting on a day where no animals come, and I felt like you could just feel that picture. Those like somewhat damp, cold, and gray days we get in late autumn, especially if you live someplace where Christmas is really the beginning of winter and not like midwinter. I really recommend this book. The next book is a book I bought for my entire family, and it's called The Tree Book for kids and their grown-ups, and it's written and illustrated by Gina Ingaglia, I think is how you say her last name. This is a cool book if you were looking for like a guidebook to classify the trees in your neighborhood. It is a little bit broad because obviously it's like all of North America, and it's not... it's more than just all of North America now that I think about it. I think it's got some that are not in North America. But you can go through your neighborhood and see what trees you recognize, and it gives you a little bit of information about them. It's got a cool part. So you get the picture of the tree, the description, and then over here you get like what the leaves look like, the branches, the seeds, so you can really take a look at trees more closely in your neighborhood. This was a really fun book at the end of the year last spring when we were still homeschooling, and the kids had a very good time taking it out in our yard, figuring out what kind of trees we have in our yard and on our street. And my last nature-themed book is actually a board book, but it's so big I feel like it's not really appropriate for under 2-year-old because the pages would be difficult to turn, but it's called Deep in the Ocean. It's by Lucy Brunelier, I think is how you say her name. And basically in it you follow a submarine through all different parts of the ocean, and you look at these gorgeous pictures in the ocean and enjoy your little trip you take with the submarine. Very fun for any ocean lovers you have out there. Maybe you've got a 6-year-old in your life who wants to be a marine biologist. Get him this book. Okay, next I have 2 collections I want to share, and they are not new by any means, but they saved my life. So we're going to talk about that. And they are the Biscuit Storybook Collection and the Biscuit Christmas Collection. Not all these books are about Christmas. I think there's 10 stories in here, and there's 5 about Christmas and 5 that are more just like general in here. I'll tell you why these books saved my life. And that is, if you know a parent who is going to have a new baby this winter and they have a 2-year-old, I would really recommend getting them one of these books. And that is because when you are feeding a new baby, you need to do something with your 2-year-old. And after about a week, you really don't want to have them watch TV every time that newborn is eating every 2.5 to 3 hours. This book, you can see I had to like completely fix the binding, which is nice since I'm a librarian. I know how to do that. But this was the one we got when my second baby was born. So this one's been through more because it then got used again when my twins were born. And then we bought this one when the twins were born. It's a really nice book to sit and read with your older child while you are trying to feed a baby. And the Biscuit books are by Alyssa Satin Capicilli. I don't even know how to say her name. But also the Biscuit books are all really cute and they've been out for ages. But the collections are nice because then you're not trying to switch what book you're reading when you need to read for like 15 to 30 minutes. All right, the next book was a gift to my entire family, and it's The Myth Atlas by Thiago de Moraes. You know, I have a horrible accent. I'm just so American. I apologize. This goes through a few different mythologies all over the world. My girls actually got really into it this summer. I'm a huge mythology nerd, which I believe I've talked about before. You can also get Delaire's mythology if you are looking for a mythology book. But this is a new one. So if you have a kid in your life who's into mythology, they'll probably have Delaire's, especially if they're really into Greek mythology. But I'm assuming they will not have this book. The illustrations are really fun and a little bit more modern. You go through the main gods and goddesses, and then there's like a couple stories. I'm just doing Greek because people I feel like are the most familiar with Greek mythology. A couple different stories that you can get acquainted with. It's not like a deep dive into any particular mythology, but it'd be really fun for a kid who is just starting to get into mythology. And the illustrations are really, really cool. Okay, next we are going to shift into a couple series for older kids. First, we're going to do The Lighthouse Family by Cynthia Ryland. We own all of them. I can't find The Octopus, which is number 4, I think. Yes. No, number 5. I can't find The Octopus, but this is a great series. I read the first books just out loud to my oldest, and then by the time we got to the second half of the series, we were partner reading them. So they follow a family, and it's kind of like the story of a found family. It starts with a cat living alone in a lighthouse, and she's very lonely. And then in the first book, a dog who's a sailor gets injured and ends up on her island, and he has to stay the winter while he heals. And by the end of the book, 3 orphaned mice children have also ended up on their island, and they decide to live together as a family on this island. It's a really fun, sweet story that, like, if you're looking for something that's just, like, super wholesome, I'd recommend this. Cynthia Ryland is, like, probably one of the most prolific early reader writers, or maybe the most prolific early reader writer in the world. She wrote all the Poppleton books. She wrote Mr. Putter and Tabby books. She has a lot of great series. This is a little bit older. Like, I would say this is like a transitional book from being an early reader to a middle grade reader. Early reader books are a little bit more like the Biscuit books and like the Mr. Putter and Tabby books, which are also 2 great series. So for the next 2 series, I asked my 8-year-old what he wanted to recommend people buy this year, and he went with the Ricky Ricotta Mighty Robot series, and there's more than this. He just got me all the ones he could find in his bedroom, which is a mess. But these are fun, silly stories about a mouse who has a robot, and they're written in like graphic novel fashion. These are great for kids who are maybe not feeling super confident in their reading, because you can really tell what's going on for the pictures. I like these because my son still really wants to read with me, but like a book like this, he'll read this before he goes to bed alone and doesn't need me to sit next to him and sort of coach him along, which is nice for me. They are very, graphic novel-y feeling and fun. And his last recommendation was the Diary of a Wimpy Kid series, which he's working on right now. The Deep End is the newest book. I'm going to be honest. Book 1 came out when I worked at an independent bookstore, and they've been coming out since then, pretty much every year. Like, I don't think these books are numbered. Oh, no, they are. This is book 15. And I mean, was I working there 15 years ago? Probably. So it's been about 1 book a year. And I've never read them. Oh, no, that's not true. I read the first book in library school. I totally forgot about that. They're fun. They feel a little bit graphic novel-y. My son loves them. Kids love them. You want to get your kid hooked on a series? Who's in 3rd grade, because I put this at like a solid 3rd grade reading level, give him Diary of a Wimpy Kid. All right, so next I want to talk about some ARCs I read this year, which I do not own, but were absolutely wonderful and would make great presents. The first is the Secret Explorer series by S.J. King. My 3rd grader is obsessed with this series. I think we've read 5 of them. There are more because I did miss the ARCs for some, and we are going to grab those probably for Christmas. They follow a group of kids who all have like a specific thing they're really good at, and they go on these adventures. So one of them is about a kid who is fantastic or has a lot of knowledge about volcanoes. So he and another one of the kids get transported to this volcano in trouble. They're adventurous. They're not too long. They're 3rd grade reading level. Like, I would say like high 2nd grade, solid 3rd, 4th grader who wants to read something they're more comfortable with. Next is The Secret Garden rewrite in graphic novel form. It's by Mariah Marsden and illustrated by Hannah Luchtenfeld, I think is how you say her last name. I read this with my 5-year-old and she loved it. So she is really into the movie The Secret Garden, and I still think that the book might be a little too old for her. This was a fantastic read for the 2 of us. I was very sad when it disappeared because I only get them for a certain amount of time, and we both loved it. Next, I have A Very Rainy Day by Adam Secchio and illustrated by Emily Timmermans. This was a really sweet picture book. If you're looking for a new picture book, it's got the idea that like rain makes you grumpy and you don't want to go outside when it's rainy, and then getting out there and enjoying the rain. The next one is This House is a Home by Deborah Kerbel and illustrated by Yonglin Yang. I really like this book a lot. It's about a family of bunnies living in a house, and then like the whole world changes around them and what it means for your house to be a home and what home actually means. And then I've got The Night is Deep and Wide by Jillian Z and Sue Todd. This is a board book, so if you are looking for a new board book, I'd recommend this one. It's also, the illustrations are like black, white, and red, if I remember correctly. Hopefully they are. So that's really good for babies' eyes because black, white, and red are the first three colors that infants see. And the last book I read an arc of is this art workshop book by Barbara Rucci. Now, this is a Reggio-inspired book, and my kids actually go to a Reggio preschool, which is a school of thought that is somewhat different than Montessori or Waldorf, but it focuses a lot on creation, like art, nature, and social interaction. I got this as an ARC, and this book is beautiful. Like, I would have totally spent hours pouring out of it over it. It has great art project ideas. It also really solidifies the idea that you should have an art space in your house. And actually, I'm hoping for Christmas to put an art space in our basement for the kids that's like always out for them, so they can always create art whenever they want to. Now, the last book I'm going to talk about is my children's book of the year. And it was an ARC that I got, but I ended up buying it because I loved it so much. And it's the first time I've ever gotten an ARC and then purchased the book. And it is Little Witch Hazel by Phoebe Wall. I loved this book so much. My 5-year-old loves this book so much. My 4-year-old twins love this book so much. And even my 8-year-old has read it a couple times. This book is wonderful. First of all, it starts off with a map of Mosswood Forest, which is absolutely charming. We follow Hazel through the seasons. Now, each season is a chapter, and I would say that I would put it at kind of a early reader level. And you can read one at a time. So we start with spring, during which Hazel meets a baby owl who needs her to help take care of him. Now, the pictures in this are absolutely gorgeous. They have a real folk art feel to them. I think what I like most about this book is that Hazel is a fairy, but she doesn't look like a Barbie fairy. Like, she looks like what you'd imagine a fairy sort of looks like a regular woman living in the forest. This book is also extremely inclusive, which I loved. I'm going to find a picture that makes that easier to explain. There's lots of different racial representation in terms of the magical creatures. They're not just all white. They have different body types, different skin tones. They feel like real people, which I really loved. If you see on this picture, one of the fairies is nursing her baby on this side. There's also representation of same-sex couples and interracial couples. I really love this book. It's fabulous. It's beautiful. You're going to fall in love with it, and you should buy it. And it's a great gift because it is like such a big, beautiful, thick book. It's a really great gift book. It's $24. No, it's $19.99. Oh my gosh. That's a really good deal because honestly, I would have paid like $30 for this book because it is so wonderfully lovely. Let's just look at this picture one more time because it's my favorite. And those are my recommendations for kids books for this year. So I will do another video about adult books. I have said before that I don't read young adult, so I'm not going to do a young adult video. And I don't read a ton of middle grade, so I didn't do middle grade because most of my middle grade recommendations would be a couple years old. So I'm not going to recommend middle grade for you guys. I hope you are getting a lot of your holiday shopping done if you are someone who does. If you have any questions about any of the books that I recommended, please leave me a comment. I would be glad to clarify anything, or if you have a particular question, you can ask me. Also, because there is so much supply chain issues this year, I really recommend going into a physical bookstore and asking for help. As someone who used to work at a bookstore, that was my job. I stood in the children's department the month of November and December, and people asked me questions, and I would recommend them. So if you loved some of these books and you really wanted to get them, and then you get to the store and they don't have them, ask for something similar. They'll be able to help you out. If you don't have an independent bookstore in your town, try your luck at Target. Send me a comment and I will help you out. I hope you are having a wonderful day. See ya!